day, everybody. January 31st. Sort of feels like January 57th, I think. But anyway, nearing the end of the first month. Thank you. Just broke the 1,000 views watch listen mark. I appreciate that immensely. This is Three Things with Ian, and this is episode 31. Let's get into it. My first thing today is another podcast recommendation. Today I'm recommending another podcast near and dear to my heart, 99% Invisible by Roman Mars. Even as I said that, I sort of heard the melodic melody of his voice and his sound. This is a podcast that explores architecture, urban planning, inventiveness. It's more than that though. It's interesting topics. It's a narrative, it's journalistic. It's about 35-40 minutes. There's probably 7 to 8 people that often are the voice you're hearing, the producers. This is a really fantastic podcast. It feels like a really deep dive without being like super technical. There are episodes on everything from sand. There's one that basically this guy says that sand is the most solid material on Earth and that everything kind of stems from sand, the very foundation of modern civilization. There's episodes on how famous buildings were imploded and destroyed when the time came. There's an episode about Who Let the Dogs Out, that famous song, and sort of who has the credit for authoring it. Air conditioning, kind of naturalistic things, nature, exploration. It's just fantastic. Also not a podcast that is probably new to a lot of people. It's regularly on top 10 lists for interesting, well thought out. It's progressive in nature. Oakland, California based. Really fantastic. That's 99% Invisible with Roman Mars. Really good podcast. Recommend it immensely. That's my number one thing today. The other things I want to talk about today are, let me just close some tabs here. ETFs. I'm going to pretend that you asked me collectively what my thoughts are on the market and sort of my investment tactics. I am by no means a BlackRock Capital guru or anything like that, but I think that my opinion largely on the market is I've always felt like it was an impossible ask to kind of cherry pick different companies and different individual stocks, right? So I'm drawn to ETFs, exchange traded funds. Essentially, ETFs are index funds. Essentially, when you buy an ETF, you're essentially buying part of the market, right? So, for example, the iShares Russell 2000. It tracks the entire Russell 2000 index. Those are small, mid-sized companies. So when you're purchasing a share of that ETF, you are essentially buying into, could be 20, 30, 15 different companies, all percentage based, right? So it could be 3% could be Apple, which is certainly not a Russell mid-sized market, but you're basically buying different parts. So it's a holding, and the assets are divvied up into different companies within that thing. And there are ETFs that track crypto. There are ETFs that track the NASDAQ 100. There are ones that just do the tech industry. Sorry, once again, my cat has decided to make an entrance. So I think what I like about ETFs is that essentially, if you believe that if given enough time, the market is simply going to just keep rising in perpetuity, these make a lot of sense because you don't have to worry about individual companies within these indices kind of not doing very well. So I generally believe that if you look at everything, if you pull back far enough, if you do that historic or that 5-year, even that 1 year to some degree trending, if things move up, I want to be part of the entirety of that market. And if things move together in unison up, owning small pieces like ETFs means that you generally will rise up with that, right? So it is possible, for example, on any given day, if you had the foresight to pick 5 companies that jumped up, right, you could beat the marginal progression of gains, but that's difficult, and that's kind of not what I'm interested in doing. So I believe that the market over time will grow. I want to buy the market, right? The way that you buy the market is for me, it's buying ETFs, right? Now there are some fees and there are different, you have to purchase these at the beginning or ending of the trading day. There are other nuances, but my philosophy generally is either you buy dividends, which that's another episode, and we'll do that later. But essentially, those are companies that essentially pay you a small amount of money to own those shares, right? The next best thing, or perhaps the best thing, is to just buy ETFs, these bundles, these index funds that track and kind of mimic the entirety of that sector of the market. So that's my feeling on finance largely. That's like a 2-minute version, but ETFs, check them out. I think that, for me, that makes the most sense. My number 3, and by no means am I suggesting any financial, I'm not a financial guru, so let's put an asterisk right there. My last thing is product design, weird product design. So Reese's, right? This is it's almost February 1st. We're essentially knocking on Valentine's Day door. Reese's peanut butter, delicious, right? Who doesn't love peanut butter? Look at this shape, though. This is strange. I'm always fascinated when things seem so weird, especially when so many professional people, like, this is the shape. Like, that is tangentially maybe looks like a heart. But it's just strange. Like, I always picture when I see things like that are anomalous, like I picture the boardroom meeting where everyone's sitting down and going through like those final pitches, and someone pitched this Reese's heart, and this was kind of like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do this year. That's the heart we're gonna make, and everyone raises their hand and signs off on it or something. It's just sometimes the process of products and the marketing and kind of like, there's still so many gaffes and so many crazy things that happen when you have so many important, potentially smart people in a room or part of a project. I mean, they're delicious. They're fun. I guess I'm kind of mocking it. On a Friday, sometimes you don't have that third thing with Ian that just pops off the page. So I went with my Reese's weirdly shaped heart chocolate peanut butter. Anyway, it's interesting for me to think about that kind of stuff. So let's do a small recap. We talked about a podcast recommendation. I will put a link in the show notes. ETFs, buy the market. If you believe it's going to rise with it. Buy the market. Don't cherry pick. And then weird product placement, weird designs. I'm going to finish the podcast enjoying this delicious peanut butter treat. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.